Good morning. Before we get started, do you remember the last 3 memory verses? Psalms 28:7. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. Therefore, my heart exalts thee, and with my song I shall thank him. Exodus 34:14. Do not worship any other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. In James 1:2. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. As you listen to today's Bible story, Hannah gives Samuel to the Lord. Think about these questions. Number 1. What did Hannah ask God for when she prayed, and who saw her praying? Number 2. What did Hannah call her baby boy? Number 3. Why did Hannah take little Samuel to the Lord's house and leave him there? Number 4. Why was God displeased with Eli's sons? And number 5, how did Eli tell Samuel to answer God when he calls him? Hannah gives Samuel to the Lord. Near Shiloh lived a man named Elkanah. Because he loved the Lord, he took his offerings to the tabernacle at Shiloh every year. With him went his family. Together they worshiped the Lord. But Hannah, Elkanah's wife, was unhappy because she did not have any children. Even though Elkanah loved and honored her, still Hannah was sad. More than anything else, she wanted a baby. This year, when Hannah went to the Lord to take their offering, she opened her heart to the Lord. "O Lord," she prayed, "if you give me a baby boy, I will give him back to you to serve you for the rest of his life." Eli, the priest, saw Hannah. He noticed her lips moved, but he did not hear a sound. He wondered what was wrong. Hannah explained, "I'm very distressed, and I have told the Lord the trouble." "Go in peace," Eli told her, "and may the Lord give you what you have asked." No longer was Hannah sad. She knew the Lord had answered her prayer. Her heart was light as she and Elkanah returned home.
Before another year passed, God gave Hannah and Elkanah a baby boy. Hannah named him Samuel, which means asked of God. When Samuel was old enough to help in the tabernacle, Hannah packed his clothes in a neat bundle and took him to Shiloh. She brought him to Eli, the high priest. Hannah said, "One year, when I came up to the tabernacle with Elkanah, I prayed for this child. Because the Lord answered my prayer, I have brought Samuel to serve in the tabernacle. As long as he lives, he shall belong to the Lord." Eli knew God was pleased with Hannah. He promised to take care of Samuel and teach him to serve God. Then Hannah and her husband returned to their home. Every year thereafter, when Elkanah came to present his offering at Shiloh, Hannah came too. Each time she brought a new coat for Samuel. Each year she was glad to see how much taller he had grown, and she was thankful when Eli told her how Samuel helped in the tabernacle. Hannah was always glad that God had answered her prayer. And God gave Hannah other children besides Samuel.
Now Eli had 2 sons who were priests. They did many things that displeased God. Because Eli's sons did so much wrong, the good people of Israel dreaded to go to Shiloh with their offerings. Even though Eli knew his sons did wrong, he still allowed them to serve as priests at the tabernacle. He tried to get them to change their ways, but they would not listen to him. Then God sent a prophet to warn Eli about his sons' wrongdoing. The prophet said that the sons would be punished. Because Eli let them serve as priests, he would be punished too. No longer would the high priest be a member of Eli's family. After the prophet went away, God spoke to Samuel one night. Samuel did not know it was God speaking. When he heard a voice calling him, he thought it was Eli. Quickly, Samuel got up out of bed and ran to Eli. "Here I am," he said, and he waited for Eli to say what he wanted. But Eli had not called Samuel. He said, "I did not call you, my boy. Go back and lie down." And Samuel obeyed. Soon the voice spoke again. "Samuel." The boy rubbed his sleepy eyes and hurried to Eli's bedside. "Here I am, for I heard you call." Again, Eli told him, "I did not call. You may go back to bed."
The voice called Samuel a third time. When Samuel ran to Eli, the old man knew that God wanted to speak to the boy. Eli said, "Go and lie down." If the voice calls you again, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant listen.'" Samuel went back and laid down again. Soon he heard the voice of God calling, "Samuel, Samuel." And the boy answered, "Speak, Lord, for your servant listens." God talked with Samuel that night and told him that Eli and his sons will soon be punished, just as the prophet had said. When morning came, Samuel hated to tell Eli what the Lord had said. Perhaps he had laid awake for a long time, wondering what he should say to kind old Eli. When Samuel did not come to tell Eli God's message, Eli called the boy to him. Samuel came as he had during the night. "Here I am," he said. "What did the Lord tell you?" Eli asked. "Do not hide it from me." And Samuel told him the words of the Lord. Eli bowed his head and said, "Let the Lord do what he sees is best."
Now let's answer the questions from earlier. Number 1, why did Hannah ask for God when she prayed, and who saw her praying? Hannah prayed for a baby, and Eli the priest saw her praying. Number 2, where did Hannah call her baby boy? Samuel. Number 3, why did Hannah take little Samuel to the Lord's house and leave him? She had promised to give him back to God. Number 4, why was God displeased with Eli's sons? They served as priests, but they continued to do wrong. And number 5, how did Eli tell Samuel to answer God when he calls him? He said to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant listens." This week's memory verse is Psalms 119 and 9. How can a young person stay on the path of purity? By living according to your word. Think about it. Only a prayer.
Don't ever tell John, known as Tex, that prayer doesn't work. Tex spent his life as a fisherman in the channels of the Hawaiian Islands. On a deceptively calm night in 1967, Tex guided his 40-foot fishing boat toward the beach of otherwise inaccessible canyon on the north side of Molokai. He had agreed to allow some friends to go ashore using a fishing vessel's small skiff for some wild pig hunting while he and the rest of the crew did some night fishing. Returning to the rendezvous spot early the next morning, the men found the conditions had changed. Huge waves ripped through the channel and crashed into the boat, nearly capsizing it, and unbeknownst to the crew, fatally weakening it. The fate of the small skiff full of hunters waiting on the shoreline was immediately apparent. Its bottom had been torn off by the rugged lava rocks.
With great difficulty, a tow line was brought to the shivering hunters who, while holding on to an inflated plastic tarps and an ice chest filled with their kill, were dragged by the boat's winch through the surf to the vessel. When all the men were safely on board, the huge craft gunned away from the island. Exhausted after fishing all night and the adventure of the morning, Tex went below deck to sleep. A few hours later, he was awakened by his panicked friends. The boat was sinking. By the time Tex got to the deck, there was nothing he could do except order everyone into the water. Without the skiff, the 8 men on board the fishing vessel had only life jackets and inner tubes to keep them afloat. Bobbing in the water, Tex remembered the ice chest full of freshly slaughtered game and fish. He knew that sharks would be in the area within minutes, so he encouraged the men to paddle as fast as they could away from the sunken boat. All 8 of the men knew they were in big trouble. The currents in the channel were sweeping them into the open ocean. But as night approached, it seemed that their salvation was near. Bouncing up and down in the inky sea, the men thought they could make out the lights of the boat in the distance. 2 of the men decided to swim toward the lights. It turned out that they weren't boats at all. They were in the airplane warning lights on the top of Coco Head, a far distant mountain. The 2 men were never seen again.
By morning, the situation had worsened. One of the inner tube was losing air. The men had no food or water. The planes that passed overhead could not see them bobbing in the middle of the Pacific. It was then that Tex decided to call a prayer meeting. No one objected. With all hope gone, The group of tough, self-sufficient sailors had only one place to turn. They huddled together in their life jackets and inner tubes, and with loud cries pleaded to God to intervene. The moment the last man finished his prayer, Tex looked up. "A stick," he cried out. The stick was standing vertically out of the water. It appeared to be a fishing buoy or a marker of some kind. If they could get to it, Tex reasoned, someone might come along to check it and find them. At the very least, it might support the one who was losing air in their inner tubes. Using all of their energy to fight the current, the men paddled toward the stick.
Suddenly, the stick began to move rapidly in their direction. The 6 men stopped paddling, stunned and puzzled. Seconds later, there was an incredible whoosh that seemed to pull the ocean out from under them. At the same moment, a monster emerged from the depths. It was a nuclear submarine. The hatch opened, and the captain of the sub came to the observation deck as the men in the ocean screamed wildly. They had been rescued. Huddled below deck and nursing hot coffee, the 6 survivors listened awestruck as the captain explained that it was against orders for him to surface his sub anywhere outside of Pearl Harbor and that he was expected to face disciplinary action for what he had done. But, he explained softly, something beyond my control told me to go to the surface. I can't explain it. Something just told me to bring the sub up, right then and there. I did, and there you were. Application.
This true story is just one example of how God answers prayer. On occasion, God's intervention in our lives is obvious and spectacular. At other times, however, He works quietly in our lives and asks us to trust that He has everything under control, even when things don't work out the way we expect. We can be confident that God is faithful. He hears and answers when we pray. Ask and you will receive, and your joy will be made complete. John 16:24. Memory verse. How can a young person stay on the path of purity? By living according to your word. Psalms 119:9.
This concludes today's lesson.